Hello. Well, welcome back to another cool time with Blessed, and as usual, we love to do fun stuffs here. Today's recording is based on a request from a friend who is doing a dev part of a DevOps team, and it's got a bit of struggle trying to get a task done. So what we'll be doing is to emulate something that looks like this. So he is the developer, and he needs to create a source code management. We'll be using CodeCommit. Then he needs to create a pipeline, like using CodePipeline, which whenever there is a change or an update, it triggers the pipeline, then runs the pipeline job, then drops the updated version of the code in an S3 bucket, then serve that via CloudFront to a user who would want to fetch or get the content in the bucket. So this is just a high level description of what we'll be doing today, but I hope you again and love the content. Please do like, subscribe, and turn on the notification button. As well, I'll be doing a recording for another request, which is bordered around Ping Castle and also Active Directory. Look out for that stuff. So let's get this in the background and get right on the job. So here is the static website, which obviously I've showcased before as my website. So I've got the code in here. It's just the basic one. I've got it deployed in Amazon, so you can see in this S3 buckets I've got these stuffs going on here. I've also used Route 53 to actually expose this. Currently there's no CloudFront anywhere here, but we'll be showcasing using this, and then we'll see how that works. So let's get our hands dirty doing some cool stuff. So our first task will be to create a CodeCommit repository. So I'll be pausing part of the videos because I don't want this to go too long. So for here, we just need to create the repository. Then we'll follow the walkthrough. Then I'll get back to you guys. So quickly, we'll call this demo repo and a bit of description. That's it. I'm just going to create this stuff. Okay, so before we go ahead with the attaching repository, there are quite a number of prerequisites which we must satisfy. One, which is the Git version. We already have that right here on the local system. You can see I actually made a directory and I have the code in here, source code in here. So we'll be making this a Git repository. But first, we need to set an IAM user, make this user being able to access. So we're going to be configuring this right here on the IAM. Wait for that to load. We will assign a permission so that user can actually be able to do what we need it to do with CodeCommit. So here in our IAM user, we're going to add permissions or attach an existing policy directly. So we should be able to do this. I'm going to look for AWS CodeCommit Power user. So we'll select that, then next review, then we'll add the permissions. Okay, now we've got that permission added to this IAM user. Now say you do not have permission to do this within your environment. You can simplify the whole process by just uploading those files, creating the S3 bucket, uploading those files in there and making them accessible public, but we'll see how that works again. All right, so let's move on to the next phase of this. Okay, so we're going to create a security credential for this user to be able to access CodeCommit. So we will be doing a bit of either upload SSH keys here to be able to do this, or even using the HTTPS Git credentials, which I think we will do, generate that because we want to use HTTPS, not SSH for Git. Okay, so by clicking the generate credentials, we will have a credential generated. I'm going to pause this. Okay, so now we have our credentials. I'm going to close this. Then I'm going to go back to CodeCommit. So what we'll do is we will clone this repository. Now we have the options for SSH, but we're using HTTPS, remember. So I'm just going to copy this and go in here and paste this here. So I'm cloning that CodeCommit repo all the way down here. And if that is done, we will now proceed to the next part of the task. Okay. This might pop up. So this is where you put in the credentials which you download. Just ensure you follow suit. If not, you have troubles. Okay, so we cloned the repo, and as you can see, it's a Git repo. which is actually the one in CodeCommit. So we've been able to move all our files into that directory there. We can see the .git file in there as well, which is directory, which is very necessary to have for you to know it's actually a Git repo. So moving on from here, we're going to start building. All right, so the next part of this will be to now send this over to the remote repo. So we'll be using a couple of git command. First, we'll run git add. I'll just put -a there for all. I'm not sure why it seemed to be a failure warning, quite a number of warnings, but again, I'm going to ignore that. I'll do the git commit -m, then we'll put a note there, add source code. Okay, then we will do the git push to see if we're able to push all of them to the remote repo. Okay, so we got a success. We can see we're able to compress the object, and we're able to write 56 out of 56, 100% without issues. Then we have the link right there, the master, the branch, actually new branch is actually master. Okay, so let's move on to the next phase of this. So we have our repository up right here in CodeCommit. We can see, if I click on this, we will see the static files in the repository. Now we can add more files, we can clone this, or we can play around this. So the next phase of this is we'll be trying to see how we can hook up this with our S3 buckets, then also create CodePipeline to automate that workflow for us. All right, let's quickly go get that done. Okay, so the next thing which we'll be doing will be to create CodePipeline. But I think before we want to do this, let's go create a publicly accessible S3 buckets, which we will be deploying the code into, or the extracted part of the code into from our repo. Then we can now use CloudFront to actually expose this to the public. That would be pretty fun stuff to do. So give this a bucket name, a unique name, and follow the procedures, set permissions, and also try to expose this. I'm going to go do this in my background, and I'll get back to you guys when I'm done. Okay, so here's me actually bad practice. What I've done basically was I have a bucket which is publicly accessible, so I just copied the settings from that bucket, pretty much save myself. So all right, which is bad anyways. You want to be sure what you're doing, remember. All right, so ACL is disabled. Fine, at some point we will do enabling that, then the bucket owner is enforced. Then now for the block public access, you see this is completely open. Okay, so be sure what you want to do. I advise you be sure what you want to do. Then the bucket version in currently none. I'm not tagging this as well. Server-side encryption is disabled. I'm not doing none of those stuff. Then the advanced setting, also object lock is disabled. Pretty much something you want to look into details. So I'm going to create these buckets. Okay, my bad. I know it's going to scream at me, no uppercase. Thank you. I'm just going to change that to all lowercase. Then go ahead to create these buckets. So once again, be sure this bucket has got public access. So like I did tell you, this is our bucket. I just copied exactly the same settings here. Well, if I probably would go into that, we can see right here in the permissions. Currently I block for the block public access. It's off. Then, but not just that. Now I could either enforce bucket policy if I actually set the object ownership to be the bucket owner only. Then I can now probably set up some policy to be used to manage access to that bucket, which is what is the right thing to do anyways. But I'm just doing a random video. So what I've done was to use this as preferred, then give public access to these groups and these objects, maybe read write a variable minimum. Okay, so read and list, sorry. Now we could also set up some cross-origin resource sharing here, which maybe I'll be doing a video later to showcase that. But at this moment, this is what it looks like. The bucket is publicly accessible to everybody. Now the next part will be to go create the code pipeline and job. So let's get right on into that and see how it works. So on the code pipeline page, we create new pipeline. We'll click on that. We'll just follow the workthrough. So this might take a while because of my network is pretty down. So right here, new service role, existing role. Then we can also give this a role name. First, we'll give this a pipeline name. So we'll call this the default template name, demo demo pipeline. Okay, so that's gone. In the service role, we can choose a new service role, which is what we've done. Now the role name, we can see it's going to create a role name. Now under advanced, we can set up a few things there, but again, we can leave the settings the way it is and just go next. Okay, now the source provider, this is where we need to search where we want to use as a source. But remember, we've got CodeCommit, right? So this is where it comes in strongly. So we choose the provider CodeCommit. Then we should be able to see our repo and select that repo. We'll just wait for that to load. If I search, that's just my demo repo. The branch will be the master branch. If you've got other forms of branching going on, you want to go fine grain doing all that stuff. But I'm pretty much okay with the way things are now. For the change detection option, Amazon CloudWatch event is recommended to set that as a trigger, or either the code pipeline, which I think would be a better option to work with, just to showcase what I want to showcase. So I think I'm just going to stick to the CloudWatch event, which is recommended. But again, we can use code pipeline to check for changes periodically. I don't know if that probably might incur extra cost or stuff, but we'll stick to the recommended, and also the output artifact format. We'll use code pipeline default. Okay, I think it's going to zip that file. So we'll go next on this. Now we would be creating stages. So the build, this is optional, so we could probably skip this, or we just try to specify a build stage, but I'm going to skip this anyways. So let's, maybe, I don't know, should we do this, should we not do this, and let's just skip build phase. I know, fine, thank you. I'm going to skip that. Now deploy provider, here we'll be looking for S3. So we'll work with S3 as the deploy provider. Be sure it's in the same region. Again, I must be clear that everything you're doing, you want to be sure it's in the same region if you're not done some proper networking to be able to allow you play around. So we'll select that bucket which you created, which is this bucket. So now the S3 bucket key, if we do have any, but at this point, I think that's pretty much it. So one more thing of note, now if we want to specify maybe a directory in that bucket where we want this to do, but for me, best practice, I like to just isolate stuffs. I could probably have done this on the bucket that I have already, but again, I wouldn't do that. Best practice, no. So I'm just going to extract this before deploy. Then we've got additional configuration if we want to do some key management stuff, which is actually recommended. But again, this is just me playing around, right? You guys remember, so I'm not going any complex here. But if you'd love to, I would be glad to probably showcase how to use the KMS and also the CandyCL, or maybe the catch control, which is actually a good practice anyways. But that would be it for this. So once again, no catching currently, but again, I'm tempted to do catching, but let's just go next on this. Review everything which we've done, be sure it's okay and valid, then we'll create the pipeline. Alrighty, wait for this. Okay, so let's watch the fun part. Now we can see that the pipeline execution ID is generated. Then we can see the pipeline, the source code for the start, the code commit fetched. Then all the way right here to deploy, we can see that actually succeeded. So if we go back to our S3 buckets, we should be able to find stuff's objects in the buckets now. My network is a bit slow, so I'm going to select this bucket. We should find the unzipped object, so I guess it's going to take a while to populate this, but obviously it's going to get in here. I'll wait for that to conclude. Okay, so right there you have it. This is the bucket. Then we can see the objects are in the bucket. So we could try to browse this to see if we can access it at first before we now bring in CloudFront to help us manage access to this stuff from the public. Okay, just a little bit of testing. So before we do CloudFront, let's simulate a developer making a change and going through the Git process to see how fast that can actually be updated. So I'm going to nano into index and just make a slight change. maybe find a line and just make a basic change. Okay, I'll just call this projects updates. See if I can save this. Then I'll go through the git process. So from git add, we'll add that. Then git commits. We'll just put a message here: updated project templates. Although that doesn't reflect what it is anyways. Then we'll git push. Okay, so quickly while it's trying to push, we'll go to our code commit and see if a job will be triggered. Obviously, to trigger a job, and it will go through the process quickly and also replicate that into our S3 buckets. So that might take a while. We may not be able to catch it in real time, but I wish I could probably catch it in real time and show you guys what it looks like. Okay, so we'll wait for this, then I'll come back to you guys. Okay, just in time, I was able to catch it. All right, so in progress, triggers that, then it's going to go through that, and also it's going to deploy that. Then we should have an updated version of that code in our S3 buckets right off the bat. Okay, pretty cool stuff. Now let's go do the CloudFront stuff. Okay, right off the bat, CloudFront. So create the CloudFront distribution. We'll just follow the walkthrough if the network is a bit fast, but it's raining, so I'm getting this delay from my network provider, and I hate this stuff anyways. So it seemed to be back. Just moving on quickly, we'll select the origin. I think the bucket is I'll do a quick verification on that bucket name, demo bucket CodeCommit. Okay, that will be this one right here. We'll select that, the origin path. Now this is optional. We can actually set this, or we can just leave it, but I think I'm going to ignore this for now. It's right in the root of the bucket, so I don't have to specify any path. Now the bucket name, I'm just going to, which is what we selected. Now S3 bucket access. So these options are quite it's quite okay for you to understand what it's doing. Don't use OAI. Now for these, we can either enforce only CloudFront to be able to be a valid access to this bucket, or we can set a bypass just in case. But again, best practice, we always advise that yes, use OAI, which is recommended actually. Bucket restrict access to only CloudFront. Now the origin, we can set origin as identity or not. Origin access, we can either select create new one, which we will see. We can create a new one. Currently we don't have any. Then if we're creating a new one, then we can enter the OAI name. We can even choose the one which is already given here, just like what we see here. So I'm going to create this. Okay, we've got that right there. Now the bucket policy, this is another very important part. We can update the bucket policy, which is pretty much recommended. So yes, let's update the bucket policy. Then add a custom header. At this point we can do a bit of customization if we wish, but again, SSL is strongly recommended, right? So we want to go by best practice. Okay, so if you want to add a custom header, that's right where you're going to do that, but I'm not doing that. Again, another important thing is origin shield. Okay, this is extra caching layer, more or less, to help you reduce the load. We can also do a bit of additional settings like connection attempt, how many times before we time out, and all this stuff. But we'll leave all that stuff as default. The default caching behavior, again, is another important path to pretty much set up stuff. But again, we can either choose the option to compares object automatically. I'll leave that as yes. Then the viewer, we can go strict, which I'm going to do obviously. All right, or we can redirect this to this. I think maybe let me work with this, because if I do strict, they must put in HTTPS to be able to access, but if I leave this, then they can either use HTTP, then it's going to redirect them to HTTPS. Allowed HTTP method, I think I have to be very clear here. Again, some of these bad practices are how we see a hacker has been able to exploit buckets. So if we want to get head, I don't think I need options, just is a static website. Okay, great. There's no option to put anything in there. Restrict viewer access. If you restrict viewer access, viewers can use CloudFront signed URL. Okay, I'm going to leave this as no. The catch key is origin requests. We'll leave this the way it is recommended. Then response header, again, is optional. We can set some cross-origin resource sharing if we feel like, but I'm not doing any of this stuff. Now the functional access is also optional. Here we can specify a function like CloudFront function or Lambda function, then specify all that stuff. But we're not doing none of the stuff. A bit of the settings, the price class, we'll use all edge, location, best performance, or but more higher on the price side again. So I will shut this down quickly as soon as I'm done recording this. Allow WAF. I'm not using no WAF, but we can actually specify some WAF or ACLs to manage again fine grained access policy. Then some custom SSL certificates. If we do have one, this is what we bring it in, or some IAM certificates or ACM. Again, we'll ignore that path. Supported HTTPS version 2 is okay. Default root objects, I don't think I want to do anything. Everything is in just the bucket root. Standard login, well, I don't want to log again because I have to tear all these things down. But again, you want to have visibility, so please enable this best practice and specify clearly. But I'm not doing this for this recording, so I'm going to shut that down. No IPv6, I don't need this anyways. So let's create the distribution. Okay, so starts the deployment. We see deploying is ongoing. Once it's done and it's propagated, we'll be able to get a link, then we should be able to view the resource. But I'm not going to be showcasing that part of this recording, so this is where I'm going to call this a short anyways. A quick walkthrough. If I should go back to that photo which I displayed at the start, let me see if I can fetch it just to be sure we're clear on how we've been able to go about this. Yeah, that's it. So if you look at this, we can see the developer, the source code using CodeCommit, then CodePipeline trigger the job wherever there's a change here, update that quickly in the pipeline, then dump the recent version in the S3 buckets, then CloudFront to expose the S3 bucket. Then our user can quickly fetch that using HTTPS or even HTTP and get a redirect to the content. Well, this is it. Thanks for your time, and I'll be seeing you in another recording. Have a good day. Thanks and bye.